But in order to officially become a pro gamer in Korea and to get the actual license, which you need to at all be allowed on TV, etc., you need to win something that's called the Courage Tournament, which is a qualifier, more or less, and that is very, very hard. And you usually have to try several times. So Rhett is going there without having done that yet, so he has to practice very, very hard to become a full pro gamer, and that means he has to stop playing Terran versus Zerg. He has to learn how to play Zerg versus Zerg, and there's a lot of challenges ahead, but we all stand behind him, and he clearly has got the ability within him. Hope to interview him one day, I must say. So best of luck to Rhett. Any other predictions about this autumn, foreign or Korean Starcraft, or in general?
In terms of Red, or just in terms of the scene in general?
No, sort of. What's the atmosphere like? Would you say now? There are many things changing. The foreign and Korean scenes are merging. How do you look at the near future? StarCraft
Well,
2 and all.
you really hope that they someday would make a full merger, as some games have. As of right now, I think that the Korean standards and style of play is just too far ahead of the foreign scene to be totally integrated into one another. But I think steps that are being taken, like Rhett going to Korea, and like Aitra being over there, and Noni, who went over there for a little bit,
Yeah.
these are really good for showing the Korean scene that there is an interest and there is competitive StarCraft elsewhere other than Korea. And I really hope when StarCraft 2 comes out that foreigners will really be able to prove then and there that they can compete. At least some of them will be able to compete on a Korean level. As I'd really hope that if we could get even just a couple foreign stars in the StarCraft scene that do decently well in Korea, it'd really help out kind of the merger between the two cultures. As of right now, in StarCraft 1, I can't really see that happening fully, as they just are kind of in a different league, if you will, in terms of StarCraft. But I hope someday, definitely StarCraft 2, that it'll happen.
Indeed, so do we all. We need the sequel to progress. But speaking of that, you have played it because you went to BlizzCon, and how was that? And how did you find StarCraft 2? We are all aware of the issues. How do you see it?
StarCraft 2 was tons of fun. I was really excited to go and play it. I actually played a few games with Brent, who had a ton of experience with StarCraft 2, and so I didn't do fare too well on my first few attempts. But the game is definitely a lot different. But if this makes sense, it's got a lot of similarities, but differences at the same time. And one thing I really noticed was in StarCraft 1, if you build a unit and you go out to attack with that unit, it kind of uses its ability on its own. You just need to move it around, micro it, and make sure it doesn't die. But other than that, it uses its ability on its own for the most part. In StarCraft 2, there were a lot of units that have abilities that you use kind of individually that doesn't do on its own. And I think that kind of adds a whole new, unique strategy to the game, along with all the other ones that are starting to kind of come up throughout StarCraft 2. But it's like, instead of just taking a group of 12 Marines and moving them and making sure they don't die and attacking lurkers, now you got units that have two or three abilities, on each unit. I'm not going to say that many per unit, but some do have a couple abilities, and they make them so versatile in so many different situations. And I think that's going to be a big change in StarCraft 2, as well, of course, not having all the same units and having kind of this totally different style of play, all this one base play. And I don't know. I think it's going to be really awesome. Again, I think it's going to be just like StarCraft 1. It's going to start off, people are going to find the imbalances in StarCraft 2, and then it's going to just take a little bit of time for Blizzard to kind of adjust those and get it back up to a really balanced game like StarCraft 1 was. And I definitely am not skeptical at all. I think Blizzard will do a great job. It's just going to take that few, I don't know, maybe a few months to even a year to really get it close to that solid play. I mean, it took StarCraft 1, I think, 6, 7 years
Yeah,
to even
something
get
like
kind of
that.
close to that. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be great.
As are we all. I very much hope to be able to play the beta whenever that comes. Hopefully it's a Christmas present, and really, get my hands on it, as do, I'm sure, all people listening to this. Just one more question about StarCraft 2, something that other commentators have had various opinions on. We all know it's going to be built as a spectator sport, much more than any other game, really, having inbuilt tools for, making it easy to observe, basically, but also that the very graphics, because they're so detailed, beautiful and crisp, will have, some say, reduced the visibility and the clarity of StarCraft 2 compared to the original, and that is a deficit, according to some. You, who have played it, what do you think?
It's kind of a tough thing to say. It does have a lot more going on, and it is a little bit more difficult to follow, for sure, just because of, like you said, kind of the details and all the different explosions and different death animations and things like that can sometimes draw a little bit away from what's actually going on. But I think, again, like anything else, it's going to just take some time to adjust for people. It's going to look different. It's going to act differently. But after, a year or two of just casting and playing this game, people watching it and streaming it, whatever it may be, I think they'll just get used to it, and that won't really be too big of an issue anymore. And I really think that the spectator tools that Blizzard's built for this game is just a great idea by Blizzard. I mean, with the ability for us to watch StarCraft 1 is already amazing in itself, but the fact that we're going to now have all these different things that we've wanted for so long built right into the game, it's just going to make watching StarCraft games and replays so much better in StarCraft 2, so I think that was a great decision by them.
Yes, it's very exciting, and I'm sure you and I certainly both hope so, and I'm sure many listeners do as well, that esports and StarCraft in particular will become more of an established, sport, really, in the future, that you can watch on TV and enjoy as a true competitive activity like other more established sports. Only here there are explosions and ever-changing maps and lots of cool stuff, really. Let's hope that's the way it turns out. I'm very hopeful that it will. However, before I round this off, do you have any final shout-outs or predictions or rants or messages you want to convey about the things you're doing, Justin TV/IC Cup, anything really?
I have a couple shout outs. I'd like to shout out to Brent, of course, for helping me out with everything that he does. He really is an awesome guy, and I have a lot of fun doing this every week with him. Big shout out to just everyone who's been very supportive of the tournament and the show that we're running, and been understanding that it's a process in building up a good show, and becoming better at commentating and running a show is just a learning process, and I really appreciate the people who've understood that and have stuck by the show and have watched. And of course, the StarCraft community has been really supportive in putting up news and just really doing a whole lot on their own. And I think that's the great thing about the StarCraft community, is that you don't really even need to ask. People just help each other out in a lot of ways, and that's really cool to know that everyone's kind of got each other's backs in that regard. Big shout out, of course, to Justin TV as well. They've just been so much help in this, just getting this tournament together, and as well as just streaming our show over there. They've helped out. I can't even explain how much they've helped out. It's just crazy. And then finally, shout out, of course, to you for having me on the show. It really was a pleasure. And shout out to all the guys that I hang out with in the StarCraft community on a regular day-to-day basis. You know who you are. Other than that, thanks again, guys, and GG.
GG indeed, Kenny. Everyone will find all the links in colorful banners and everything to what we've been talking about, and especially Kenny and Brent's show, which in a couple of hours, when you're hearing this for the first time, will be launching again. It's very accessible, and it's also very professional, so all guys, go and listen to that. It's StarCraft at its very best. Again, thanks for coming, Kenny. GG.